Cary, it's great to see you. I'm looking forward to getting caught up on all things NowRx and the online pharmacy telehealth business. So thanks for making the time.
Yeah, Karen, great to see you again, and thank you for having us.
So I came across a statistic, and I want to get your reaction to it. I read that there were 4.5 billion prescriptions filled in the U.S. in 2021. That's a lot of prescriptions.
Yeah, we're a very medicated society.
We're a very medicated society, but the vast majority of those prescriptions were refilled, maybe not in the pharmacy, but they were picked up in the physical pharmacy. And I'm wondering, why is it that people still walk into a pharmacy to get their prescription refilled?
That's a great question. I have my own theory about it. I explain it this way. For pharmacy really hasn't changed for about 100 years in this country. It's different in some other countries, by the way, but in the US, I think consumers have just grown accustomed to what the idea of a pharmacy is, being a place you drive to, you park your car, you get out, you walk in, there's a counter, you stand in line, and then you get your medications. And, it's really an entrenched kind of visual concept of what pharmacy has always been. And if you can ask, we actually do this in our marketing research, you can ask 100 people on the street, and it's almost an immediate recall. They can see it in their head. Oh yeah, pharmacy, that's what it means. It means going down to a brick and mortar store and standing in line. And I think that therein lies the opportunity as an entrepreneur, which I'm sure we're going to get into more throughout our call. But, because the industry is so entrenched in its ways, so to speak, I think there's really a big opportunity here for a new way of thinking.
So you saw the opportunity, you have the new way of thinking. What was the hardest part of the business to solve before you could actually get up and running?
Well, the pharmacy industry has been around for 100 years. There's a lot of big players in the industry, from the insurance payer side, from the pharma manufacturers to the wholesale groups to the doctors. So it's anytime you're coming in as the new kid on the block with a new idea, trying to get across and kind of change the mindset of all of those parties is probably the biggest challenge, trying to understand where the regulatory limits are, what are the rules? Is that really a rule, or is that just the way we've always done things?
Right.
And asking that question over and over again, up and down the entire supply chain, and learning myself. My co-founder, Sumit, and I, we came to pharmacy not really knowing any more than anyone would know, having gone to the pharmacy. We really were not experts at all in the industry. I have a little bit of background in healthcare and insurance, but not the pharmacy side. And so learning about all the players and the rules and regulations, both, which ones can be changed and which ones can't, was really, I think, the biggest challenge as we launched NowRx.
So what were you able to change that represented, the way we used to do it versus a regulatory impediment that, all pharmacies have to?
Well, I can give you some funny examples just to give you a sense. Even just the delivery of medications, there is a sense, if you talk to people at, not to pick on them, but CVS or Walgreens or any established chains, if you ask those people that work in those pharmacies behind the counter, is it okay to deliver a prescription medication? A lot of them think it's not okay, that somehow wasn't allowed, that we all had to go into a pharmacy to pick things up. But if you look back, not that long ago, even 50 or 60 years ago, little corner store pharmacies used to deliver medications all the time.
Yeah. I remember the little car driving up to my parents.
That's right. That's right. And so we've lost some of these things. And again, people just have the mindset that, well, that must be the rule and must be the way it is. And in fact, it's not. So we had a whole myriad of things like that we would talk to the regulators about, that we would talk to our wholesale partners and our insurance company partners, and just always questioning, well, I know patients, I'll give you another example. I know patients, get a consultation from their pharmacist. Is that a law? Well, there is a law that you have to offer a consultation to every patient taking a new medication, but it's only for new medications, and it only has to be an offer and the patient can decline. A lot of people in the industry didn't think that was the case. They thought, no, every patient has to be forced to get a consultation, and that's not really true. And so we then worked with the state regulators and said, well, would it be all right if we put a slip inside our delivery bag that said, hey, if you want a consultation, you can text or call this number? And they had to look at their laws and say, well, yeah, there's no reason you can't do that. The law allows that. It's just no one's ever done that before.
Interesting. So how do you make the economics work of being a local pharmacy that, is a micro fulfillment center? I know you do a lot of things with robotics to make that part of the operation efficient, but you have to have volume, I would imagine, in order for the business in each of these local areas to actually be efficient. I mean, if you look at Uber and the ride hailing platforms that are masters in logistics, I mean, even those guys struggle to do that without ancillary products and services that make up the deficit. So how do you do it?
Well, that's a great question too, Karen. For Uber, I think they have a bit of a harder time because they're purely a logistics company and they have to live off of whatever fee they can get from that rider, and they have to pay a lot of that to the driver and so forth. So they don't have access to a lot of revenue, frankly, per ride. What the NowRx concept, the way we conceived of it was we knew we wanted to provide patients a same day experience because, again, that's what everyone's been used to, walking to pharmacies. Yep. Generally the same day they get a prescription from their doctor. So we wanted to recreate a same day experience, and we thought about a free delivery service that could be same day and even same hour, because sometimes medications are quite urgent.
Yep.
And so that painted a picture of a micro fulfillment strategy where we have a fulfillment center, but it's not in some faraway state or some faraway place, but it's actually local. So we can get out there and deliver same day and even same hour. And so that was the basis of the concept. And the financial aspect of it is, generally speaking, quite simple. We don't have to pay for expensive retail locations on every street corner. Our locations are about a third the size of a big CVS or Walgreens, the way we do our fulfillment. It's a third the cost per square foot for rent because it's commercial space. It doesn't have to be retail. And we can do about 3 times the volume of a traditional retail store. So we have 1/27th of the fixed overhead. If you multiply all that out, not to do a lot of algebra here, but and so where a typical pharmacy might spend $6 or $7 per prescription just on the rent, just to rent that space, not even counting all the variable costs, our costs are 1/27th of that for fixed overhead. So we're already saving $5 and $6 and even $7 per order by our micro fulfillment strategy. And then, like you hit on, we house that micro fulfillment center with a lot of automation, robotics, and our own software that really cut down on the amount of manual processes that are needed inside the pharmacy. So that saves our expenses as well compared to the big players.
It's as I'm listening to you talk about how you set it up, it's almost like the Ultrafast delivery strategy. Sounds like more profitable, but it's about small footprint, local, where you have density of demand, and you're able to serve that population efficiently. What about the patient that has the first time prescription? I needed its new medication. Yes, I need it today, but now that's something I need to take every month. Do you still have those people a same day delivery, or can you put them on a different fulfillment schedule?
Well, certainly when we're at a refill situation with a patient, we can schedule that in advance. So our logistics platform and even our purchasing and our inventory management is all an intelligent system that can plan ahead for when we know someone's going to have a refill 3 weeks from now. And so we don't deliver that today. We wait until that delivery is coming due, and then it pops into our delivery queue for that particular day. So all of that triage and route planning is done by our software system. I think I may have said this before to you, but it's worth repeating probably. We look at ourselves as half logistics company for sure.
Yep.
And there's technology therein as well, but we also are half a pharmacy. So you have to do both. And our pharmacy triage system, the way we prioritize processing of prescriptions and scheduling those is tied right into our logistics platform. It's all a unified system, which gives us that advantage to do that very situation you described, much more efficiently.
But isn't it more efficient to deliver it another way? You don't have to pay a person. You can put it in, overnight or two-day delivery.
Well, mail delivery is not that cheap at all, really. I know that's a lot of people's intuitions, but if you look at even commercial level prices for mail, it's $3 and $4 per package. And we're actually able to achieve that with our micro fulfillment strategy, even less than that at scale compared to mail. Don't forget, when we say send something by mail, that package gets picked up by a courier, taken from a mailbox, taken to a fulfillment center that sorts it, maybe puts it on an airplane or another truck, which is driven by a courier, and then dropped off at another location, and then given it to a mail person, which is also a courier, and they drive it to your house. So that cost of mail delivery ends up being comparable, in some cases higher than our courier deliveries.
And you think that it's more competitive than the larger chains that offer same-day delivery of prescriptions? I mean, they all do now.
They all offer it, but they all charge for it. So the typical price, at least at CVS, is $7.99 per delivery if you want same day. And so we wanted to build a system where we absorb the delivery cost, we make up for it in the efficiencies for the facilities that we have and the processing we have inside the pharmacy. And I think that gives us a huge competitive advantage. I can tell you, for the typical pharmacy customer, where their copay amount for medication is maybe $15 or $20 already, they are very reluctant to want to spend another $8 or $9. And certainly if you look at a Medicare patient where their typical copay is zero or just a few cents, they really don't want to pay. They're on fixed incomes often. They don't want to pay a $7 delivery fee. And so again, we think this is where the industry is moving, and we wanted to build a company to provide that.
That's why people still go to the store and pick up their prescription, because how are you working with insurers to be part of their network? Because often consumers don't have a choice as to where they get their prescriptions refilled.
Yeah, NowRx is fortunate. We are a preferred pharmacy for all the major insurance networks. So patients will find they can come to NowRx and get the same low copay that they're getting at their other preferred pharmacies. There are a handful of plans that are what they call narrow plans, where NowRx doesn't have preferred status. And so you're right, for those patients that have limited choice, they may get a better copay at their preferred pharmacy. In the 6 years we've been in operation, we find that latter situation less than 5% of the time. We are, equal with all the other pharmacies with regards to the insurance plans that we accept and the copays that patients will pay. So it's a pretty level playing field. This is one of the reasons why I like to say, Amazon, although they're in pharmacy, they don't really have one of their biggest advantages, which is trying to be the low cost provider in pharmacy, because the copays are actually a level playing field across most pharmacies.
Yeah. So how do you leverage your platform, part logistics, part pharmacy, to scale beyond what you're doing today? I mean, do you what is on your roadmap? Are there other ancillary services? Do you license your logistics technology to others? What are you thinking?
We're not thinking about licensing our logistics at this point, but we do have several initiatives underway to move beyond pharmacy. We launched our Telehealth platform in 2021, and it's been off to a good start. Really excited about the results. We see, moving healthcare to a more convenient state, and telehealth is a big part of that. We know of no other company today offering a telehealth platform where we can connect physicians and patients, and combining that with a same-day delivery pharmacy business. And so that's really exciting for us. Several other initiatives we're thinking about and moving on are what they call specialty medications. These are not medications you would get at a CVS or a Walgreens, but specialty companies that specialize in cancer, hepatitis, fertility, and usually very expensive medications. They take a lot more handling. There's a lot more follow-up with the patient after the medication is dispensed. We work really closely with the insurance network. So those are two big initiatives, the telehealth and the specialty. But we, as we grow, we're looking at, ways to get medications directly from pharmaceutical manufacturers rather than through the wholesalers. We're looking at, maybe dealing directly with insurance companies themselves rather than their PBM intermediaries. We want to keep kind of vertically integrating and removing those silos.
Reduce your cost. So you want to be a B2C brand, not a B2B brand. I
look at us as a B2B2C or a B2P2C. We're a business to physician to consumer. Pharmacy, the orders are made inside a doctor's office, and that's where we do most of our marketing. 95% of our customers are actually referred to us by physicians that we work really closely with. Our software and systems that help with the insurance processing and something called a prior authorization process, which can be a big pain in the neck for doctors. They have a hard time and a pain point with pharmacy too. That makes their lives a lot easier. And so doctors like their patients to use NowRx. We don't pay them anything for the referral fees. There's no referral fee or anything. And we just save the doctor's time by solving these pain points in pharmacy for both patient and doctor. And there's a little known concept in the pharmacy industry called medication adherence, which is a measure of how much a patient takes their medications according to the doctors.
That's a big problem.
It's a huge problem. It's a $300 billion problem every year of unnecessary hospitalizations, and that costs insurance companies money. And doctors can actually get better reimbursements from insurance companies if their patient health compared to their peer group is higher. They get something called a star rating from Medicare. And so giving physicians and their patients better medication management gives a whole host of benefits to doctors. And so we really look at ourselves as a B to P to C type of marketing strategy.
So are you saying that when physicians refer patients to NowRx because they get the same day delivery, you've eliminated that one point of fallout, which is I never go get my prescription, I never pick it up?
That is one part of it, but we also, the way we handle insurance claims for doctors and the way we collaborate. And if you look at the industry, it's all siloed. Physicians are siloed, pharmacists are siloed, insurance companies are siloed. What we do is we break down those silos and communicate and collaborate better. So if a medication is sent by a doctor to a regular pharmacy, but it hits an error with the insurance plan and they get an error code and that medication doesn't get filled, that's then a phone call from that patient back to the doctor. The doctor then has to call the pharmacy, prescribe something different. Our software does a lot of that in the background. We get ahead of those errors. We solve them through our software system. We have a decision tree that gets through as much of that as we can ourselves. If there's more information that the insurance company needs in a prior authorization, we integrate with the doctors to get that information. We actually have a legal framework where we can represent the patient and the doctor's office with the insurance company, so we can resolve those prior authorizations without the doctor even having to be involved. So yeah, it's a number of benefits, saving the doctor's time and headaches, cutting down the times patients don't get their medications, not just through delivery, but through better insurance processing and an inventory management and coordination with physicians.
But don't you still need the consumer to be able to answer the question when the doctor says, where do you want me to send your prescription? Because doctors often say, what pharmacy? And you tell them what pharmacy. So you need a consumer campaign as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's a B2B2C, but we do augment it, as you're suggesting, with some direct-to-consumer messaging. But in the doctor's office, we do a lot of that. So we have our brochures there that explain the concept to patients, and doctors are there to help explain the concept and say, hey, a lot of our patients have been using this and it's phenomenal. But we do have We do have an overlying direct-to-consumer messaging marketing effort. You're absolutely correct.
Do consumers, patients worry about the medication they're getting? I mean, do they think that there's a difference in the medication that they're getting from a NowRx versus their other CVS, Walgreens type pharmacy? Do they ask that question?
Not as much. We did get some of those questions in the beginning. There's sort of a bad reputation that online, quote unquote, online pharmacies generated a few years back with, like you're suggesting, counterfeit medications or medications from other countries that hadn't gone through the FDA. In fact, that's one of the maybe impetuses also for our micro fulfillment strategy is we really are a local pharmacy. We're in your neighborhood. You can come down and visit if you want. Even you don't have to just see our drivers, but our drivers are our employees. And we get our medications from the same wholesalers and pharmaceutical companies as any of the other local pharmacies. They're all FDA approved. We have that information on our website and our app. So I think that can put most patients' minds at ease.
What are the requirements as part of the delivery? Is there a certain member of the family? Does the actual patient need to sign for the medication? How does that work?
Depends on the medication. If it's what we call a controlled substance, you can think about narcotics, but there's other medications as well that fall into that. Then our driver needs to have a live delivery. We can't just drop it off on your doorstep.
Yep.
We need to verify the identification that this medication is getting to the patient that was intended, and they'll verify ID at the point of delivery. We used to require signatures before COVID, but now with COVID, we ask the patients to give their date of birth, and then our drivers record that in our system and verify that with the last 4 digits of whatever's on the photo ID, and that's how we verify identification for controlled. If it's a non-controlled substance and it's not an expensive item and it's not a refrigerated item and the patient's given us permission, the driver is authorized to leave it at the doorstep. And we take a picture. That photo is stored in our system with a GPS stamp and a timestamp.
What is your strategy for expansion? I mean, it's interesting. I think about the open table analogy, which is, you've got this platform, but you need density in order to serve consumers and to make your drivers and the delivery part more efficient. Are you going state by state concentration, geography, and then going to another state? How are you doing that?
Yeah, it's another good question, Karen. We think a lot about that. There's a combination, there's sort of a balancing of going wide, but also going deep.
Yep.
In the existing territory. So as we expand to other states, and we just recently announced signing leases for new space in Denver, Colorado, Las Vegas, Nevada, Bellevue, Washington, and we're getting ready to announce some other states soon as well. But at the same time, those are net new territories for us. But at the same time, we're also adding more locations inside California, both north and south, and Arizona as well, because you're exactly right. We do have to balance that density within a market as well as, more territory.
What makes a good market for you?
We look at population. We look at 3 or 4 things. We look at just general population, because that's where the prescriptions are. Those 4.5 billion prescriptions. If you look at where they are, they're where the people are. There's the other metric I like to use, Karen, is there's enough prescriptions for every man, woman, and child in the U.S. to take 13 prescriptions a year. That's a lot of prescriptions. So they're where the people are. We look at population. We also have industry data where we look at the number of physicians per square mile. We look at we can actually look at the number of prescriptions currently being prescribed per month per square mile. And then we look at competitor pharmacies. One of the most interesting stats is where are all the other pharmacies, because that's where we want to be. We know that's where the pharmacy business is.
Yep, because that's where people are going to pick up their prescriptions today.
And we want to give them another option.
Absolutely. So if convenience is going to define healthcare, which I believe you're correct about that, and there will always be the reason to want to see your doctor in person, even though telehealth is so efficient and has certainly been a lifesaver, literally, probably for many people during COVID. How do you see it evolving? How will we know where we've reached the tipping point where convenience is now driving those decisions?
Well, I think we're already there to a certain extent. It's whether or not the regulations are going to catch up fast enough. For example, telehealth is regulated by the medical boards of each state,
Yep.
and
Yep.
they're slowly allowing and enabling more and more disease states to be handled by telehealth. Pharmacy is similar. The boards of pharmacy are starting to catch up. So I think the movement's underway. I think consumer demand is leading that way. I've always been a big believer in that. I think consumers always kind of pull industries different directions. And I think that in the pharmacy world and healthcare generally is being dragged, kicking and screaming towards more convenience. But because of the regulatory sort of inertia, it's going to be a more slow evolution. You brought up an interesting thing and made me think about answering it this way. You talked about, sometimes patients really do want to go see a doctor, and that's always going to be true. There'll be some diseases that you just need to have a face-to-face with a doctor, and that's never going to go away for some cases. But one of the things our platform, one of the advantages we do have a telehealth component for those disease states and situations where you can meet with your physician on a Zoom call, while you're sitting at home in your pajamas. But if you needed a follow-up from a specialist or something where it had to be an in-person, we also partner with a lot of walk-in primary care physicians through our pharmacy side of the business. So we have an internal referral network. We can help patients find their way to when they need an inpatient doctor visit or when they can do it through telehealth. We can bring their medications. 80% of all appointments with a doctor involve a prescription medication.
Wow.
And so all those meetings with their doctors, you can have your medication delivered same day free of charge.
I think one of the other things that has to happen for telehealth and sort of the in-home model for care is diagnostics. I think there has to be a way for the physician on the other side of the Zoom call to be able to see, what are your vital statistics, and that is just not consistent. And I think that inhibits or it limits the effectiveness of a telehealth visit.
Stay tuned. 100% right. There are remote sensors now that are becoming HIPAA certified technology that can transmit patient data safely from a remote location for your things you mentioned, blood pressure and more things like that. Weight, of course, respiratory, even diabetes and blood tests. And, we already have today, and we're starting to think about ways to put that to more use around, nurses coming to your home and taking your blood and taking it off to a lab, and even, devices at home that can do that blood test and transmit it. So yeah, I think that's coming. Really, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised over the next 5 years.
I'm a big fan. I had a telehealth visit for a problem with my eye, and it was kind of hilarious because you get up close to the camera, you open your eye. Can you see it? Can you see it? It was kind of wild, but it's effective, and it certainly saves everybody a lot of time. And I mean, to your point about identifying if you need further intervention, at least you've saved that initial trip to actually be pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, and it saves money for the whole system. It's more efficient for physicians. They need to rely on office space less, and it saves money for insurance companies because it's just not so much time scheduling for doctors and the whole scheduling team. It runs a lot of it wrings a lot of the expenses out of the system, and that's good for everyone.
Absolutely. Well, Cary, it's so great to catch up with you again. I appreciate the time, and I enjoyed the conversation. I look forward to the next one.
Karen, thanks. This was great. Really good to see you again.
Thanks. Bye-bye now.
Take care.